So, let's get to today's program. Yesterday, we had an amazing hot lineup, fantastic speakers. Kicked off with Todd Maffin and his amazing story. So it really was amazing, and you've got another hot lineup today. So the title of our next presentation is Building Collective Impact. So please join me in welcoming the CEO of the Canadian Mental Health Association, Mr. Peter Coleridge.
Well, good morning, everyone. I realize I need to turn this one on and put this one down. Good morning. And wow, yesterday was a great start, I think, to building momentum. And I just wanted to thank the Kelowna branch, Sheila and her team, and BC Division, Bev and her team, for a terrific start to the conference. So congratulations. I also want to thank the Kelowna branch and a number of branches actually in British Columbia who over the last few months have donated $1,000 each to supporting change and momentum across the National Association. And I think that show of support and embracing the change, and I'm going to be talking about the need for change today, really also sends us off on a good start to building momentum, and this conference is certainly another big piece of that, and there will be other pieces along the path to building momentum and creating a stronger CMHA, something that I think many of you participated in 2009, the Congress in Ottawa, a strong message about the need to strengthen the organization, and that's what we're going to start doing moving forward, and that's why this conference is called Movement Building. There's movement building externally, but we have to build some movement internally as well and be ready to take our position externally. And I'm going to talk a lot today about the need for change, and I'm going to be focusing on, I want to reflect a little bit on the past of CMHA. Also want to talk a little about our current present, not only within CMHA, but the broader environment, and the future, and the process for change. And I know that it's human nature to resist change. I don't like to move. I don't like to switch my car. We don't like change. And so in listening yesterday, and again this morning to the elder, Edna, I thought, wow, what amazing advice. I don't want to offend anyone today with some of my comments about the need for change. And so, again, take what you need and leave the rest. I really, really, really mean that. So let's talk a little bit about the history, the past of CMHA. And I just really want to briefly touch on this. Our best historian is in the room, Steve Lurie. And I know he did a talk on this and what it means to be national at the Congress in 2009. But before I talk about some of the other things, I just think it has to be grounded on what CMHA is all about and where it has come from. And I think many of you know this, but there are some new people, and so I think it's an important place to start. And I think many of you have probably heard the name Dr. Clarence Hinks, and he was the founder of the Canadian National Committee for Mental Hygiene. And there are many quotes that I could have used here, but I wanted to use this quote, which he's reflecting on the link between mental health and physical health. And doing that back in 1918, way before the World Health Organization ever came out and proclaimed that mental health and physical health were inextricably linked. And so he was way before his time, and I want to come back to this later on in my presentation as well. In 1950, the Canadian National Committee for Mental Hygiene became the Canadian Mental Health Association, and this white cross was the logo for CMHA, and the beginning of a variety, a number of local chapters being created across Canada. And here we are today with 120 plus locations of CMHA across Canada. So lots of strength and people on the ground helping other people across this country. During that time, the first executive director or general director of CMHA, again, a number of quotes I could have used here, but I thought that this was an interesting one where during this time period of 1950 to 70 was when all the discussion was happening about moving away from institutions and into the community, and we certainly began doing that, and of course the downside of that was the lack of investment in the community sector while they moved things out of institutions. The right thing to do, but the lack of investment and the lack of community services has been profound and continues to be problematic and a challenge for CMHA as well because of limited resources to provide the extent of services that are required. Also during that time, when I looked at the letters patent for CMHA, the focus was around fundraising, education, services, research, and consultation. So again, hold that thought. We're going to come back to that. In 1970, the White Cross was replaced by this logo, which continues to be our logo today, 2011 and 1970. So I think we may look a little dated. We probably haven't kept pace, and this is probably something we will refresh as we move forward, again, pending resources and discussion with lots of people across Canada in CMHA. At that time, the objectives of CMHA were to ensure the best possible care, treatment, and rehab of the mentally ill, promote practical programs designed to prevent mental illness, and protect and promote mental health. And that's really what we continue to be about today. Around that same time, the CMHA president for Perth County, a quote, again, reflecting on stigma, talking about the fact that we've got some progress, there's been some success. And then in 1993, CMHA, same look, same focus, became 75 years old. And in 2018, we'll be 100 years old. And I think from this point forward, if we go into the next 7 years looking at what we can do to be stronger and keep that as the beacon, the milestone that we're working towards, so that in 2018 we've made some of the changes that we need to make to be a stronger, unified CMHA, one organization with a lot of influence to shape mental health and mental illness in Canada. Now let's talk a little about the present, the last 5 to 10 years approximately. I think you'll all agree that the profile that mental health has received in the media, through governments, celebrities, corporations over the last number of years has been phenomenal, incredible profile. If you take the last 10 years and look at it 20 years out, the profile for mental health and mental illness has been really quite amazing. I mean, you've got Bell, Canada Post, other large corporations investing, getting behind the cause. It really has been terrific. We also established the Mental Health Commission of Canada, and CMHA and many organizations across the country played a role in establishing the Mental Health Commission, and we have worked with them to develop a national, Canada's first national mental health strategy. We're hoping it will be launched in the fall, and we all own that strategy. It's not the Mental Health Commission strategy. It's Canada's national mental health strategy. CMHA, mood disorders, the list goes on. The consultation has been extensive. The Commission has fulfilled a role of being a catalyst and facilitator to bring us all together, to give input and consult. And like all national strategies, and I've been involved in others, whether they've been substance abuse or national tobacco control strategy and others, the end product is not perfect. We'll all find different things we would do differently in the strategy. But overall, it's a strong strategy. It's evidence-based. There's been a lot of input. It is a strategy to guide all of us. And like all strategies and plans, they evolve and change as well. So while it won't be perfect, I think it will be a very powerful tool for all of us and create more movement for mental health in Canada. And I'm glad the Commission, they have a session here today, and we're doing a number of projects with them as well. And so I'm really glad that we're doing work with them. And I know a number of people at various levels in CMHA have been involved with various commission committees and so on. And so I think that that partnership is important. And, you know, to be frank, I know there's been some bumps along the way, but I think the partnership is improving. And we need all the players we can get in mental health and mental illness. The Commission and all the other organizations. There's a lot of work to do. We don't have to be in competition. We just need to find the synergies and work together. And I know that's not easy sometimes, but it's important that we do that because there is a huge, huge amount of work to do to really transform mental health and mental illness in Canada. 2011, we celebrated 60 years of Mental Health Week in Canada, led by CMHA. This is one of the posters that we used. We had a special 60th year logo that we also put on our materials, and it was a significant time, I think, for another milestone for CMHA, and we had a very successful Mental Health Week. But when I reflect on the Mental Health Weeks of CMHA over many years, the focus has been messages and awareness, and that is an important thing for us to do, and we need to continue to do that. But we have to link that with what we know from research, that campaigns in isolation of creating environments to support health, to support mental health, do not have sustained impact. And so we need to work together to link our messages to our policy agenda, to our programs, so that we're not only educating, but we're creating the environments that support the messages that we're putting out there. And so over the next few years, we're going to try to do some work on that so that we have more impact through Mental Health Week moving forward. And this is not going to happen overnight. This is a lot of work to do this. But I'm looking forward to working with all of you to make that change as well. And at that time, yours truly was in the media saying these things. And I show you these because, not that they're anything profound, they're nothing new, but to highlight that in 1918, remember the quote from Dr. Hinks. And I hadn't seen that quote at the time when I was in the media using this quote. And I just thought, wow, amazing. Yes, we've had some success, we've had some progress, but we still have a long road ahead to really, really change the perceptions and the misunderstanding of mental health and mental illness in this country. And so it's pretty amazing. The profile's there, but we don't really have as much progress sometimes as we think. There's also been change within CMHA over the many, many years. But like the profile not matching necessarily the progress externally in terms of mental health and mental illness, I really feel that CMHA, while there's been change, we haven't kept pace with the pace of change externally. We haven't kept pace with the changing landscape and some of the new players. And what is our role juxtaposed some of the other players? Where are the synergies? And so that's why I really feel, and I hope you will agree with me, that we need to turn up the volume about the changes we need to make in order to position ourselves differently and really be prepared to be strong and contribute in a big way to the progress that we need to make in this field, because we're just not there yet. And a lot of the people that I've talked to, and as I mentioned yesterday, I've been connected to CMHA in my different roles over 20 plus years, and over the last few years, and certainly over the last year in my role, a lot of discussions with governments, funders, corporate sector, other mental health organizations, and they have a number of perceptions of CMHA, and they've told me about some of the challenges that they see of CMHA. And I want to share with you just 2 or 3 of those. This is not an exhaustive list. And again, take what you want here and leave the rest. But I'm hearing loud and clear that we do not operate, we do not function as a unified voice or one organization. And everyone I talk to is confused about who is CMHA. We get multiple asks if we have funding available. We don't see connections between your messages in the media on policy. We don't see connections between your programs. And so we've created a lot of confusion out there. While I understand the need for autonomy to respond to local and regional needs, and we're going to continue to do that, that is so important, and it is a key ingredient of this organization. We have to balance autonomy with creating synergy. And I just think that that's so key moving forward. And if we don't do that, we're going to continue to not have the profile that we should have as a national organization. And we're going to continue to struggle in our fundraising abilities because we have confused so many people. And without those 2 things, we're not going to be strong, and we will not have the influence that we need to have on policy and services in mental health in Canada. We've also lost our position in the changing landscape, and I did mention earlier that while there are some new organizations on the scene, whether it's the Canadian Alliance for Mental Illness and Mental Health or the Commission or others, we need all those organizations. We don't need to compete. We don't need to stab each other in the back. We need to work together to find out who's on first for what, where are the synergies. There is enough work in this field to go around. We need everybody, but we've got to figure out how we can work together. And I think if we